Welcome to the Fantasy Grimoire podcast. And today we have the wonderful Aileen, Erin with us. I know we don't have a conventional, I almost want to say relationship. I'm a fan. I've made that part clear, I think. And when I launched the podcast, I was like, oh, I'd love to have you on the podcast. And you were like, sure. And I was like, shoot my shot. I was like, I need her on here. So I love having you here today. Thank you.
I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you. This is like, I've very much been looking forward to it.
Same. So I want to start talking about your Alphabet series because you have so many series. Like, I mean, your backlist is impressive. Like, that is, I think, something most authors aspire to get to. But if I understand correctly, your Alphabet series, like, that's your real, like, where it all got started and where you really got into writing.
Yes.
Tell us about what inspired you for that series.
You know, it's kind of a funny story. I showed up for my MFA and I knew that I was going to have a thesis, and that thesis was going to be working on a novel. And that's what I was going to have to do. I didn't realize that I needed an idea when I showed up there. It's kind of embarrassing. So I found out on day one, okay, so you're going to meet with your mentor who's going to guide you through writing a book, start to finish, And I like, so just come with your idea ready and all your notes and plot and everything, and we'll get to work. And I was like, oops, I had nothing. And I had, an evening to pull something out of my hat. Twilight was pretty popular. The movies had just started coming out. But, and this might be a very unpopular opinion, I didn't enjoy the Twilight books. I really didn't like that, especially in the second book. I think she has Bella Swan jumping off of cliffs and doing all kinds of things. And her boyfriend breaks up with her, so she basically wants to die. And I was like, that's not something that you want to tell young girls. That's not a really great role model or good model of relationship, that your boyfriend wants to kill you. So anyways, I was like, you know what? I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I love Angel. I grew up on those shows. They're big parts of my childhood growing up. And although I know Joss now, and he would be horrified if I said childhood, so we'll just forget that I said that. But I adored him, and I adored all those shows. And then I got into urban fantasy, reading adult urban fantasy. So when Twilight came out, I read it. It wasn't for me, which is fine. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something with werewolves because I don't like vampires. I like werewolves. I'm going to do this. And I was like, I'm going to put it at a boarding school because I like the idea of a boarding school. I always thought it was cool. And then I went to an international school, high school. So I knew a lot of people from different backgrounds, different countries. They all spoke a million different languages. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it like that, but a boarding school, and we're going to throw it in for werewolves. Done. Yeah. Let's go. And I was like, all right, I have an idea. This is what we're going to do. And I don't know if that was the best way to come up with an idea for a novel, but it worked out okay for me.
I have seen some of your, I almost want to say accolades. So I think it worked out pretty well for you as well.
It worked okay.
But also on the Twilight thing, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Twilight. Mm-hmm. So I actually read the fourth book first, not realizing that it was the fourth book.
Oh, no.
And that whole kind of Volturi and this battle, and I was like, yes, I was like, give it to me, kind of this is what I love. And then I read the first few books and I was like, well, okay, it's fine, but I mean, I'm never going to be pining after a man. That's just weird for me personally. Mm-hmm. And then you say Buffy. I'm busy doing a Buffy rewatch at the moment.
Oh, so good.
I loved Buffy as a teenager, right? Mm-hmm. But some of the things I'm looking at now, and I'm like, she's 16? I was like, I mean, I wasn't maybe Miss Innocent at 16. I'm the first person to admit that. But I'm like, you're 16. I was like, am I getting that old where I'm having a problem with it? Wait a minute.
I can see that. But yeah.
So I'm on the same camp with you there on the same series. I mean, Buffy, and I mean, when she died in season 5, did I sob my heart out?
Right? It was crushing.
I felt like I lost my best friend.
And then when she comes back,
and that depression she felt, and she's like, I'm happy.
I'm gonna skip to a different series. There's a moment in Off Planet when, and I feel like this is a spoiler. I have a moment like that where he and comes back, and it's just like she's just like, no, I wanted it to be done. I don't want to do this anymore. And you're just like, because I love that moment of her coming back and being like, why did you do this? It's such like that moment in Buffy was so good.
But that's a big part. I think what we do as authors is how are we creating these emotional connections? And if we look at these, cultural phenomena we're talking about, it made such an impact on us growing up that even now as adults, we're like, yeah, I'm still going to be writing about that because that shaped. I pumped Vampire Diaries. I mean, granted, I was an adult when that came out, like the TV show, okay? But I was like, Elena, Damon, and the love triangle now. I'm like, again, why are we putting a love triangle with a 16-year-old with this massive age gap? I was like, now I'm like, I have questions.
Yeah.
But then when I watched it, I still loved it, and I'm going for that emotional connection.
The emotional, it's all that good feels. That's like what they're looking for, and I really actually like the originals better than I liked the Vampire Diaries.
Do not get me started on the originals. We are going to be here all day.
So I love the originals. I was like, Vampire Diaries. I got a little tired of Elena after a little while, but I was just like,
go away.
But then the originals came out. I was like, yes, so good, so good.
House Michelson. And I'm just like, he will do anything to protect his family. Sadly, I've never been to the States yet. On my list of things to do, I'm getting there. But I have this unhealthy obsession with New Orleans. And like, I'm sorry, I want to go to Mardi Gras. I don't care how touristy it is. I need to go do that, and I partially blame the originals for that.
Yes. I mean, it definitely has a vibe. New Orleans has definitely, it's got a vibe, and it's like kind of got a creepy, like, and kind of body. It's isn't it? Yeah, it's definitely, it's worth a visit.
That history, like I am you've also got to remember, I come from a very young country. So I'm originally from South Africa, right? Obviously, I live in Amsterdam now. Our country is only a few hundred years old. Now, if you look in Netherlands, we're talking sometimes going back to the 1400s. We're just not used to that kind of history. So I think that's kind of why I tend to latch onto all this amazing, rich lore and culture built into our history. And like with New Orleans, yeah, I'm there.
It's such because it's got like this voodoo vibe in it, and then the French vibe, and it's like it's just very specific to itself. So yeah.
USA best-selling author. Now, I can't speak for every author, but I think that is something each of us aspire to as well. Do you remember the moment when you found that out and like what it felt like?
It was a surprise. My husband is a very curious man. He was like, how do you know? It was right before Alpha Unleashed was coming out. And he was like, how do you know if you like get on one of these lists? I was like, I don't know. I guess like probably maybe my distributor would tell me. I don't know. Cause I had set up like a publishing company, and I had business partner and other, like it was a whole thing. So I was like, maybe they would tell me. And he was like, I don't know. I was like, I guess maybe that's the job of the publisher. And I was like, wait a second, I'm the publisher. And he was like, well, we should check, maybe to see if Alpha Unleashed will make it. And I was like, oh, well, let's see. And I was like, well, let's just see anyways. Like, do I just put my name in? How do you search? And I popped up that Alpha Divided 6 months before had made the USA Today list. And I was just like, I had no idea. I was like, it wasn't even on my radar that like little me would get on the list. I was like, I'm just an indie. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
I write like silly teenage vampire werewolf books with like, I was like, no. This is not. And then Alpha Unleashed also made the list, and I was just like, oh, that's fine. I was like, great, cool. I felt like such an idiot. He was like, babe, you never would have known if I didn't ask you to look. I was like, I just didn't expect to ever get on it. So
it's like, when I asked them, are you sure? Like, did you
do your math right? I don't know about this. This seems suspect. So yeah, it was an idiotic moment. I mean,
but I think that talks a lot about your humility as well. And I think that's so important as well in the indie space, because being an indie is hard. I mean, obviously super rewarding, wouldn't change it for anything in the world. Like, I know for me personally that if I got offered a trad deal tomorrow, I would decline it. Like, that's how like passionate I am about the indie space. But I think we sometimes can get caught up in like the numbers or the viral marketing or whatever, and we forget that humility that what people connect with. And I think just listening to you tell the story, that was the first thing that came into my mind, is your humility despite your success. And I think that's a really important message.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I felt like a ding dong, but I was just like, I don't know. I'm just writing books. I'm putting them out there. I don't know. Just me.
Well, you are living, at least I know for me, my dream, where you're getting to write full time and you're getting to, I almost want to say, set your own pace and how many books you produce a year. And I know that writing full time, well, I can imagine that writing full time comes with a certain set of challenges as well. It's not all sunshine and roses all the time. So do you want to talk us through some of your highlights of being able to do this full time, but also some of the challenges you've had to overcome while doing this?
So the bonus is that as you said, I get to set my own schedule. I can write as much as I want. It's my happy space. It's my happy time. I can be in this room, close the door for days on end and be totally fine and not talk to anybody else except for the random people in my head. So, which sounds psychotic unless you're a writer. I swear I'm not crazy. But the challenge is that like a lot of people don't see it as a job. So I get asked, can you do this? How about this? And I'm like, I'm working. So it's, and I'm a people pleaser. So I always want to say yes to everything. So that was a really big challenge for me. I'm like, I'll get to it later, or I'll push like all the writing aside and to make room for everything else. And that ends up then getting me into some really hot water, because I'm like, I had a deadline and I've just compromised everything because I've said yes, because I didn't set like office hours. So that's been my big challenge. And like having a kid has slowed everything down. So that's also been a challenge. I love her dearly, but just like making sure everything is going, and always falls on me since I don't have a job. A job. Yeah. So that it gets tricky.
So many moms are working moms, and they're like balancing all these things, trying to get to it all. And instead we're going, okay, cool. Let's have a little bit of grace. Let's adapt.
Yeah.
That's a big thing I have been learning on this podcast.
Yeah. Well. Letting go of that perfection is like, I want to be great at doing everything and make the schedule and do that. Like, and then that's kind of not attainable. So it's just kind of like you're doing the best that you can for whatever you need to focus on at the moment. So I'm not great at that flexibility, but it's something that I learned.
But you know what? It is something that we learn, because even though I don't have a kid myself, if I look at how I would respond to, let's say, certain inconveniences 2 years ago versus now, I would get so frustrated with myself because I have really high standards and I want things done a certain way. And if it doesn't happen that way, I get frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm like, okay, cool. Shit happens. What's the next option?
Yep.
And I do think for me personally, the age part is helping a little bit because I'm mellowing out a little bit.
Yeah, it does. I don't know. After I hit 40, I was like, everything. I was just like, it's fine. You know what? We're gonna make it work. And I kind of got that a little bit of a DJF vibe. So I was like, we're doing our best, and we're a hot mess, and it's gonna be fine.
I want to talk to you about audiobooks because if we look at some of the discourse that we see on Bookstagram, don't you have an audiobook? And I mean, I've never produced one, but I can imagine it is something very expensive to produce because I have looked into it once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd love to offer that not just from an inclusivity perspective, but also from a reach perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have a few thousand euros in my case to just drop on an audiobook at the moment.
Yeah.
But you have audiobooks and
Yes.
you have gone into producing audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to, number one, hear a little bit about that experience from your perspective. And number two, if another indie author is listening to this and they're like, hey, I want to do it, what does Aileen say? Like, what advice would you give them to consider?
So I've had a range of different experiences. So I didn't have any audiobooks done at all. And then Apple has been like, for whatever reason, I don't know, luck, chance, whatever, they have taken a liking to my books from the beginning. Back in the day, the Apple bookstore was like kind of just one page. And they had just banners at the top. And for whatever reason, they gave Becoming Alpha banner. So they have always been great to me, and so I really appreciate that. But they reached out and they said, you don't have any audiobooks, can we make the first 3 books into audiobooks for you, and we'll split the royalties for 6 months, and then it's yours to put wherever you want, and you can keep the files. I was like,
yeah,
let's do that. Sure. Wow. I was like, cool. Yeah, that sounds great to me. So those were great, and I had a great experience. And I was like, I should make the rest of them. So I was like, I'll fork over and I'll just use the same company. Well, that same company got bought out like 3 or 4 different times over the course of making those audiobooks. I actually had to have them re-record one of the books because it was the quality and the acting was so bad. I put it out. I'd listen to like samples here and there, and I was like, whatever, I don't have 15 hours to listen to this thing. Let's just put it up. And then I got bad reviews, and I was like, wait. And I had my admin go back and listen to it, and she was like, this is really bad, Aileen. I was like, take it down. So then we had to take it down, re-record, and they were just a nightmare to work with. So they're now owned by Spotify. People that were the boss kept quitting throughout all this process. So I didn't have anybody to go like, hey, can you figure this out? I don't really love the last few of the Alpha Girl books because of this reason. Like, there was just too much turnover, and I would love to redo them, but I already paid for these. So.
Wow, that's stressful.
Not a great experience. And then I used a different company for the Inari Chronicles. Yeah. And I used dual narrators, and both of those actors were amazing, and the experience was amazing, and working with them was amazing. It cost $1 million, like not exactly $1 million, but it feels like $1 million. Not literally, figuratively $1 million. Yeah. So yeah, it was. So now I've got the Days of Iron and Clay series, and I have 2 books out, and I've been wanting to go and figure out what to do next. I have a couple companies that I've reached out to that seem like not as expensive and as the other company, but not as much of a shit show as the other one. So I am tentatively thinking about it, but I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do all this drama. So it is a lot of work. But on the flip side, just to be totally honest, I make almost as much money from the audiobooks as I do from my ebooks. So it can be really, it took a little while for it to pick up and stuff. So that wasn't immediately, but so it can be quite profitable. And for like not that much effort. I mean, I sent some emails, listened to some auditions, that whole deal is just money up front. So, but I do it so that I own it. I've never used Audible. What is AMX or what? I can't remember what the acronym is.
Yeah, it's the sharing thing. I've seen it.
Then they own it, and people can only get it from Audible. Like, I don't like that. I don't want to be exclusive to any one retailer because I feel like that cuts out a lot of market, so like you can get my audiobooks on Apple or Audible or like Libby, from the library app. So
I was just thinking of your I can't say that one. Because that was actually the book that introduced me to your work. So I haven't read the Alpha Girl series yet, but I read that series and I kind of comped it to a female John Constantine.
Yes, that was kind of the vibe I was going for. Like Buffy meets Constantine with a little Exorcist vibe.
Yeah, because I think if I look at the supernatural creatures that I've been exposed to in books, and I'm talking about from a reader's perspective now, obviously, I just wasn't seeing a lot of that kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. Sure, we have it on like the multimedia and all of that. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I watched the Constantine movie, I was like, where's number 2? Like, we're not that. Like, give me more. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't just end on that note. Mm-hmm. I was like, so when I read your book, I was like, yeah, this is my vibe. I was like, I'm here. This is exactly what I'm going for.
I'm really glad because it's a little bananas, like portals to hell and angels and demons and stuff. Like, what?
I remember Sam in the beginning with her and Phoenix when they go downstairs to the lady, and then like you're talking about how she opens the portal, but then Phoenix like kind of pulls her, and I was like, I could actually see it. Like I remember that, and I read this book a year ago, by the way. So the fact that I still remember that tells you something.
I want something, yay! That feels good. I'm so glad you do.
So I know we didn't necessarily like discuss this, but I would love to also understand. Like, I know this is a spin-off of the Alpha Girl series because I know somewhere you have referenced that a lot of these characters exist in that world as well. I think it was Tessa. Mm-hmm. Tessa, was it? Mm-hmm. What made you decide, like, hey, let's go the spin-off series route for the Clay of Iron? Days of Clay of Iron?
Days of Iron and Fire. Iron and Clay. I was like, Iron and Fire. I was like, Iron and Fire. No. It made that. Okay. So this is actually, I really almost regret putting her in the Alpha Girl series. I'm not going to lie. So I had an idea for this book, and it's pretty personal to me. I'm half Mexican, and I had a run-in with a curandero who is like a voodoo, like Christian Catholic voodoo witch doctor. I was having like nightmares and seeing demons in my room, and he came and did this thing with this egg. It's very Mexican, but also very weird. Anyways, and a little psychotic. So I was, and this is when I was very young, and it made a very big impression on me. So they take like this egg, and he cracked all my knuckles to like loosen the demon, and he like rubs the egg all over you. And then he cracked it into a glass, and it came out, and it was black, and it had like little needles in it. I don't know how, and I had to sleep with it by my bed. I don't know. It was crazy. So I was like, I'm going to write about a girl that like is an exorcist, and I'm going to do this whole thing. So I had this like kind of first few chapters written. And then I was going to stop the Alpha Girl series after the 5th book. but so many people kept asking for more. So I was like, okay, I'm putting Samantha on hold and I'm going to write some more books. But I was writing Being Alpha. And I think that's when, like, you know, the Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hours thing. I think that's when I hit like my 10,000 hours. Had my outline and I just started writing, and it kept like, I felt like I was getting like a download creatively, and I just started going a completely different direction. And Sam popped into the book. And so I was like, I guess she's going to be in this series. And I was like, whatever, I'm going to have her in here. And I just like la-di-da. And then I was like, I really want to write this other book about Sam, though. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's in the Alpha Girls. So now I've got to have the Alpha Girls in it. Like, I don't know how to separate this. So messy, chaotic writer than I, plan to be. But she just wouldn't shut up in my head. So she came out into the book.
We were talking about earlier how you're half Mexican, and we were talking about your half Irish heritage as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing more and more on Bookstagram that we have a lot of dual heritage at play here. So I would love to hear from you, like, what your experience as being a dual heritage person has been like, and how has it shaped your writing and also shaped your experiences?
It's funny. For the longest time, I considered myself more Irish than Mexican, even though my parents spoke Spanish in the house and we always ate Mexican food. And we were pretty much more Mexican. And then I filed in for college all my applications, and my mom saw that I hadn't checked Hispanic, and she was like, Aileen, what are you doing? She was like, all of your grandparents are from Mexico. We're literally your second generation American. Like, we all speak Spanish here in the home. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know. I thought that's just how everybody was. And I was like, my skin is pretty light. And she was like, oh my God. So yeah. And my name is pretty Irish, but it turned, she slowly explained it to me. She was like, we all are Mexican, but your great grandfather worked for the consulate office in Ireland. And he was from Ireland, and he worked in the consulate office in Mexico City. So, and then he married a Mexican. He moved there as a young man, married a Mexican there, stayed there, had kids, raised the kids. And that guy got married, had my dad, who then moved to the States. And so it's like, she was like, Aileen, you're more Mexican. So then I kind of, from like 18 on, like, kind of realized like all the cultural things, like the thing with the curandero, like nobody does that. Nobody knows what that is unless you're Mexican. And I was like, oh, I just thought people did this, which is maybe a little bit dense and makes me sound a little bit stupid. So then I was like, but my maiden name has an apostrophe in it. I'm like, that's very Irish. So, and my mom named us all to go along so it like would match my last name. And it's like the most Irish name, Aileen Erin O'Connor, is pretty dang Irish. But and then as I realized, like, culturally, all the things that we did, and like making cascarones, which are like the eggs for Easter, we like put confetti in them and smash them on our head, on other people's heads, and have a whole fight with them. I was like, oh, people don't do that. Just us. I was like, oh, unless it's another Mexican and they do that. I was like, oh, so it felt a little dumb. And I never put anything in my bio about being Mexican, but it was very confusing. I got, when I first put out my first book, Becoming Alpha, and it has a lot of Mexican culture in it. And the girl was half Mexican, and I kept getting reviews saying how it was right when all that your own voices thing was coming out. And I was like, literally, this is my voice. A half Mexican girl with pale skin. I'm like, that's me. This is my own voice. So I realized that the name Aileen Erin was really setting people off. So I put just like, 50% Mexican, 50% Irish, 100% nerd, because that felt like the clearest I could be. And then that kind of died down. But I really got reamed in some early reviews for putting, I was like, my mom was like, what?
So you're fluent in Spanish, I'm assuming, right?
Spanish and yeah, that's what, and I don't know, I eat lots of Mexican food. Like, luckily I taught my very white husband to eat chips and salsa all the time. I'm like, what? We're having a snack. You don't want it? Yeah. I'm like, what? He's like, why are we having chips and salsa again? I'm like, because it's food. Okay. So luckily he likes it. He grew up in South America. So I was like, I think he definitely had a vibe from there.
The heritage thing, I'm also dual heritage myself. And I was born in like a little bit of this weird loophole situation. And especially now being in the Netherlands, I've picked up a couple of Dutch tendencies. Like, I'm not going to lie, because I've integrated really well. Okay, obviously. But I'm not South African enough anymore for people because I haven't lived there for 4 years now. And then obviously, not to you, obviously, but my mom's German. So there's a lot of German tendencies that I have as well from my mom, but I'm also not German enough for the Germans. Dual heritage really impacts. It doesn't matter if you're half or whatever, you're still Mexican. End of discussion. Yeah. No one needs to dictate your Mexicanness. That's a word, but I just made it.
Yeah. No, it's like, yeah. It's interesting. I had a really awkward conversation when I was working in post-production in film before I quit to write and stuff. I had a coworker who was very obviously Mexican. She had darker skin and she normal Mexican last name. So she was definitely, and he said, I was talking about something with her, like culturally, and I was like, oh yeah, I love it when da-da-da-da. And he was like, you're not Mexican. He pointing to me. And I was like, what? I was like, okay. Well, all my grandparents are from there and like immigrated here. So I don't know. He was like, yeah, but you can pass. So that's okay. And I was like, pass as what? Bro? So and my other friend she's still a dear friend, like looked at me like, and I guess I'm screwed because I can't.
Like, oh, I can't sometimes. Do you know how many times people think I'm Portuguese? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And I get it. It's the dark hair, the dark features, the Mediterranean vibe. I swear I'm really pale though. It's just an illusion. And I'm just like, and they're like, oh, but you don't look South African. And I'm like, well, tell me what South African looks like. Yeah. We're literally the Rainbow Nation. So you can't, because we're just a mix of everything.
Yeah.
And my number one, like, pet peeve in this country is I get mistaken for British a lot. Oh, so when you're going back home to London? And I was like, yeah, no, this is home. I bought a house and everything. Thank you. And it's just because I don't have this ridiculously strong, so Afrikaans is like Dutch, and it's a colonialism thing. So because I don't have this really strong Afrikaans accent, and because I enunciate well, they're like, oh, but you must be British. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Yeah, so it gets really frustrating as well.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you though, we were kind of touching on a little bit earlier. Why didn't you go the traditional route? Like, what made you decide, hey, indie, like this is my vibe and I'm sticking to it?
It was kind of an experiment on my part. I mean, yeah, I wasn't sure how it was going to go. So it was 2012 when I decided to go indie. And I had just finished my MFA, and indie was really frowned upon. Like, that was cheating, going around the system. It's changed a lot, but you are a real loser. It was like basically a vanity press, and you're like, you can't cut it, so you're going to go indie. And it was like career suicide. Nobody's going to take you seriously. Nobody's going to buy your book. And I got a lot of pushback from some of my friends and peers and stuff, who were like, that's going to be a giant mistake. But I had just graduated, and the last class that they make you take is the business of being an author. And I found out the truth about what everybody was making on the books. And I have a dear, dear friend who was on the New York Times list in like hardcover and everything. And she still hasn't seen another paycheck from aside from her advance, which wasn't a lot of money. So, and I've seen people like, I know people that have been orphaned at a publisher, or people that have been like just royally screwed in all kinds of ways. And things like, I have a friend that has special editions in the UK and has never seen a penny of foreign royalties. And like, she's like, there are 10-year anniversary special editions of my book over there, and I don't have any money from it. So like, authors are getting screwed. And I was like, well, this sounds like BS. Like, why am I going to do this? Why am I going to work my tail off for, hopefully a good advance? And like, that's all the money I'm ever going to see. And what they don't tell you is all that advance money is what they kind of expect you to put towards your own marketing, because they're not going to market your book either. You'll get like about a $500 like marketing budget unless you're winning the lottery and they're one of the 10 books that they want to push. But all the rest of them are, the only thing that they're doing is printing ARCs and sending them to people. So everything else is literally on the author. I know people that, have been going into credit card debt, going to signings and hoping that they're going to break even. So I was like, this sounds like a bad idea, like just money wise. So I was like, I know you all are saying that this is a bad idea, but Colleen Hoover had just done her first 3 books, and those had taken off. Abby or Allie Glines or something. Anyways, her books had just gotten taken off. They were taking off, and she was indie. I don't know if she's still indie, but she was. And same with Colleen, like she's not indie anymore. But I was like, I was like, screw it. What's the worst that could happen? And I met up with a friend, and she wanted to start a publishing company. So I was like, okay, the only way I'm going to do this, if it doesn't look like it's a vanity press, I'm going to start a publishing company. We're going to get a business. We're going to find a distribution company. They're going to distribute our files. And it's going to be like, we're just a small indie book publishing company. And that's what I still technically am. So I was like, I'm just going to give it a few books. And because I was writing, Becoming Alpha was in like the Twilight-y genre. And I had gone to a bunch of different writing conferences like RWA, where they have agents and editors come and they tell you what they're looking for. And they were like, do not send us any werewolf books. Absolutely not. They're like, do not send us any vampires. I don't want to see any of it. And I was like, they don't want it. They're not going to pay me. Screw it. I'm just going to send this out. I'll write something completely different and see if this totally fails, then I'll have a different book. This is not my only idea, and I'll just keep writing, and I'll try this way. If it fails, then I go traditional, and and I do that whole game, and that takes years of submitting and doing the whole 9 yards. And then I did it, and I was like, you know what? I'm making a ton of money. I'm making way more money than anybody else that's doing this. I hit the USA Today list, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't need all that stuff that all my colleagues and other friends thought they needed. So I was like, I'm going to keep doing this, and I like it. And it turns out I'm a control freak, because I like doing all the covers and stuff. I like having that input. I like being able to make my own schedule. I like being able to choose to write what I want to write and put it out when I want to put it out. Like,
That creative control, I mean, granted, sure, I'm funding my own indie stuff right now, and I'm in a fortunate position where I can, okay? And I realize not everyone could. But for me, I have a specific vision for my covers, okay? And I'm sorry, not a fuck is someone else going to get to decide what cover my book gets.
Yep.
Okay? Because So I wouldn't say I'm a control freak. I have a specific requirement. And I mean, like, if you look at the rule of the land, right? Again, you look at how pink that is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how much I had to up that intensity to get it to this level of pink? Because if it was too washed out, then it doesn't pop against the darker cover.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I think about, where I don't trust that someone else is going to give a shit about my cover the way I do.
No. Especially the way that because especially even more so now, the way the publishing industry is going, like those big publishers are losing money. They're bleeding money. So they are just kind of trying to find what's going to pop, and like, it's madness. So I want to be able to pick my cover. I have ideas of what the vibe I want for my cover, and like, I want to, and if they're not going to pay for any of the marketing stuff, I have to do it all myself anyways. Why am I giving them literally, traditionally published people get like pennies from each sale. And it's just like, no. Mm-mm.
I will tell you, one of my, Rochelle Mead, she's traditionally published. I think I've been on the podcast before. I am a huge Rochelle Mead fan. Like, die hard, love her, okay? And I'm not talking about her Vampire Academy series, which I did love as well, okay? I'm talking about her Game Board of the God series.
Oh, I haven't read that one. I read the Vampire Academy ones.
No, so don't, because it's unfinished. Because her publisher wouldn't let her finish the series.
Yeah.
Okay? And I need you to understand, I reread book 1 and 2 at least once a year, because it is so fucking phenomenal. Okay, it is. And when I tell you, the way she blends this kind of like dystopian, but like action / urban, like she blends a few genres, and I'm like, I die for books like this. And I'm just like, take my money, let's go.
Yeah.
And she actually has this FAQ on her website where she was like, sure, I have enough street cred to self-publish now. And she does. She really does. But she's like, I'm also under contract for other books. And I'm like, someone as talented and as phenomenal as that doesn't get to dictate her own writing?
No.
What? You know? So I will never get over that series being incomplete, by the way. It freaks me out. So badly. So I do ask every guest this, and I'm going to ask you that as well. What's your bookish hot take?
I don't think bad reviews should exist, and I won't ever give a bad review. I think that bad reviews are just really rude. If you want to go and just shit on someone, fine. But I filter my reviews. I don't ever look at them. And I won't ever write a bad review or post anything about a book that I didn't like or didn't finish. I DNF books all the time. I'm happy to pimp a book that I truly love, but I am not about a bad review. And I think every book is really somebody's baby. They worked, it's their blood, sweat, and tears. And you would not say this to somebody. Some of them can be really mean and cruel. And I'm like, you would not say that to somebody's face. And if you can't say that to somebody's face, you really shouldn't say that in a review. And it's also somebody else's favorite book. Like, not all books are for me. And my books aren't for everybody. And that's totally okay. Like, I don't care if somebody doesn't like my book. That's fine. And I honestly am the worst. I tell anybody that I meet in real life, don't read my books. We're friends. It's fine. Like, you like me, it's cool. You might not like, unless they're like, oh, but werewolf books are my jam. Then I'm like, sure, give it a shot. Yeah. Yes, but I love angels and demons. Okay, you might like it. But if you don't, we're still going to be friends. So just don't worry about it. It's not for everybody, But I just don't. I think if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah, so this has been a very hot topic on the podcast for the last few episodes because, again, I fully agree with you. Not every book is for every reader. Fine. But I think cruelty that sometimes comes through is just completely unnecessary.
Mhm.
I will say there was one, I didn't realize she was indie at the time when I started reading her, and I inhaled her entire backlist. I was like, give me all the books. And it was during COVID that I discovered her as well. So like I was like an indie with like 30 books in her backlist. Yep, I'm gonna start binging them all. And I think what was really hard for me with her being one of my favorite authors, I was like, I can't read her books anymore because she's just recycling the same plot over and over again. And I can't support that anymore because it's actually a little bit frustrating to me as a reader.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm obviously not going to mention her name now.
No.
But when I gave that final review to that book, I was very kind in why I felt that this book wasn't for me, because I still respect her as a person. And as you very rightly said, I'm not going to shit talk someone on the internet just because I have internet access. I can still be kind and respectful because there's a human element to this as well.
Yes.
We can't forget.
Yeah. There's a
So
human element, and some of them can be really cruel. I will never forget, there's one review, and I don't know that it's a top review on Goodreads anymore for Becoming Alpha. I'm not going to say the users' names.
Yeah.
I will never forget that. And it was like this long review. It was basically eviscerated me, and I almost never wrote again. I was like, I'm never, ever going to write again. I'm done. And that was after the first book,
Yeah.
and if I had quit then because that one person said something mean, like a lot of things mean, I mean, then, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I learned very quickly that I'm just like, I've gotten 1-star reviews for Becoming Alpha that on the cover, it's a girl with a wolf.
Yeah.
It's very clear that this is a werewolf book, but on Amazon, I have a 1-star review that's always makes me laugh because it says, I don't like werewolf books.
Well, it says more about the reviewer than it does about you.
It just made me laugh really hard. I'm like, great, thanks for that 1-star review. Why did you buy the book? Like, it's very clearly werewolves on this thing, and you read the description, it's all about how she becomes a werewolf. What part of that said you would like to read it? Like, you don't have to read it. And if you don't like it, you don't have to give me the 1 star. Like, you're a ding dong. Why do you do that? But it's the ones that are really cruel that I like really eviscerate an author. And it's not always my reviews. Like, I'll look on and I'm like, man, like, you did not have to say it like that. Like, this is you just really hurt someone. So I don't crap on other authors' books.
Yeah, I think, and again, that's just something I really wanted to bring into the podcast. Is we should be able to have conversations like this, and it's so important because, sure, I just recently recorded with a guest where we had a different on something, but it was still such a respectful discussion that we could have on it, and that is really important to me because I'm also starting to see a trend where some authors are scared to speak up because if they speak up, then it might be taken the wrong way and then they'll piss someone off. Yeah. And I'm like, guys, come now. Like we can have a little bit of tolerance towards each other. So I fully support that. I do have to ask, name an underrated fantasy read that you think deserves more love than it's getting.
It's old though. Is old allowed?
Yeah. Go for it.
I really like Anne Bishop. I think she's fabulous. Her Black Jewels trilogy, which then turned into a whole, like, she's added onto it, but originally it was just these 3 books. And it is fabulous. It's the OG, like, magic, shadow daddy, like, gray, morally gray hero, guys with wings. Yep. Like, it's got all the things. And like, if you liked all of the other Sarah J. Maas books, you should go circle around and get you some Black Jewels books from Anne Bishop.
I'm going to check that out. I was actually looking today because we moved in here a few months ago, and I'm looking now to stock my bookshelves. Because back in South Africa, I had like 4 bookshelves of like books. Obviously, bringing that halfway across the world is not very practical. So now I'm building up again. And the True Blood series by Charlene Harris. Now, don't think of the TV series like. I understand from a TV production perspective, it can't be like for like. I understand. Okay.
It's very different. The books are very different than the TV show. Yes.
And when I tell you that book series, okay, I didn't like how the series ended up.
It wasn't great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to end something though. So it can be tricky. And to make everybody happy, that's not going to happen. But it was a great series.
I just feel like Suki Stackhouse, okay, I will say Anna Paquin as Suki Stackhouse was phenomenal. I think she was an incredible cast for that role.
Yeah.
And I'm just like Suki Stackhouse in the actual books was such a fucking kick-ass character for me. I loved her.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why are books like that also not getting a lot more love? I know it's old and whatnot, but I love the True Blood series.
I was just talking to Jordan about that, and she thinks that there might be a comeback of urban fantasy coming up. And I think that's I'm like, yes, please. I would love urban fantasy to come back. Because I do that's I guess when I started reading, I really fell in love with fantasy, and it wasn't until high school, college-ish that I ventured into urban fantasy. And then I devoured everything that was published in any kind of YA or adult urban fantasy. I loved it all. What is it? Dead Witch Walking. I cannot remember the name of that author that series was really great. Anyways, so many really good ones. I loved all of Charlene Harris. I used to read Laurel K. Hamilton, but they got a little racy for me. I don't know if you read them, but they get real racy, real fast. And I was like, whoa, that's a little too spicy for me. But they're still great. I devoured everything. So I would love for it to come back. So
it's funny that you talk about the spice thing, because for me, I don't care if you have spice or not, whatever. If it works for your plot, include it or don't include it, or this whole discourse about spice, no spice, whatever. That's fine, okay? But for me, sometimes I'm not going to lie, I struggle with slow burn, okay? And I'm just like, I'm sorry, in what world do we hold hands for 5 years?
Yeah.
Can we maybe speed it up to 5 months? What's the compromise here?
Yeah.
And at the same time, some of the smut spice, whichever version you prefer. I'm I get that this is escapism, but I'm just concerned that she's gonna be hurt during this. I won't spoil it for you, but there was a spy theme which I think we all cheered for. That's not a spoiler at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a 3-day event, and I'm like, ow. That was my first, and I'm like, I get that you guys are supernatural creatures, but wow. I was like, it took me a little bit out of the story, basically.
I don't know. Yeah, and it's interesting. I feel like E.L. James kind of took things a very spicy route, and people are just slowly one-upping it. There's if you want blue aliens with 8 long schlongs, 8-foot schlongs, you can do that. I mean, but I'm just where do you put that? I don't. Anyways, logistically, I'm like, this is insane. Okay, sure. The blue guy is hot. I don't.
There's this one comedian, female comedian. She goes on this rant on the reels. She goes 12 inches. Where do you put that? She's like, it's not going in here. It's not going in here. She was like, I'm going to need a fucking lobotomy if I'm going to put that in anyway. And she was like, 6 inches is fine. She's like, 4 is great. She's like, wonderful even. I was actually crying with laughter at the end of her rant, because I was like, that girl, we can be friends.
I saw another reel about She could barely put both hands around it, and putting the different hand, and trying to. She was like,
I'm good. Thank you. You make your length. Thank you very much. I do have to ask, Aileen, what can we expect to see next from you in your author career?
So I'm going to write more Days of Iron and Clay. So that's coming, which I am enjoying writing it, but I also needed a little bit of lightheartedness. So I am also writing a romantasy that I have been planning on writing for about 12 years, but it just has never, it's never happened. And I'm like, you know what? I'm finally going to write this. And so I'm really excited about that one. So I've been teasing it on Instagram just a little bit.
I've seen that.
So it's coming. I don't have a title for it yet. I'm like, that's kind of comes later, but I'm like, I'm just going to start teasing it because it's going to be fun and I'm really excited about it. So, but Days of Iron and Clay 3 hopefully should come out towards the end of this year. And then, as long as I get the writing time and people understand they have a job. So, yeah.
Well, I do feel kind of privileged now because now I can send you angry messages when I read it. Like, why did you do this to this character? I have questions. I'm looking forward to that. I do have to ask, if any reader or listener is listening to this episode and they completely relate or they resonate with what you're saying and they want to connect with you or get hold of your work, what is the best place to do that?
If you want to connect with me, the best place is Instagram. I'm at Aileen Erin. I have a Facebook too, but I hate going on Facebook for whatever reason. So Instagram is the quickest, easiest way. And then my website, aileenerin.com, has all my works. You can dig in and find one that you might like. And it has links to all the different retailers. So I think those are the best places.
Fantastic. And I will pop your website in the episode description just to make it a little bit easier for people to connect with you. Well, on that note, Aileen, it has been incredible talking to you, especially for two people that didn't know each other before this episode. Might I add? It really has been like catching up with an old friend.
It really has been.